It's time to start the meeting, so I want to get everybody in the chamber to. Anybody know where
we don't
our
have
colleagues are?
Cawthorn's here.
I'm gonna look around.
No, sir.
Door moving. Do I need to call somebody?
I'm gonna be all right.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Are you getting better from something?
No,
Okay.
no,
Are
it
they having a meeting?
wasn't bad for me.
Okay, good.
But, you know, just like.
I thought I saw Kaufman.
But it's all good.
I think I'm gonna be okay.
I like to
I
say
walked
that,
my dog for the first time today.
I like to say that,
email
it's all gonna be all right, it just isn't gonna be today.
Thank you, dude.
Well, that made you laugh, that was good. Not today.
All right, Mr. Clerk, we have a quorum. All right. Commissioners, please silence your cell phones. We will call this Caddo Parish regular session meeting to order. It's September the 17th, 2020. It is now 3:32 p.m. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins. Present. Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Cawthorn.
Present.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Present.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson. All right. We've got 8 of 12 present. You do have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Everson. And just for clarification, that wasn't a roll call vote. It's just merely a roll call. We will have our invocation led by Commissioner Taliaferro, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Cawthorn.
Let us praise. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, we love you, and because we do, we are so thankful that we have the opportunity to gather here to serve your people. Heavenly Father, let us always remind ourselves to stand up for truth, stand up for freedom, and remind us that joy is always possible if you are in our presence, that good flows in the worst of circumstances. Lord, we ask your blessings upon those who are less fortunate than ourselves. And Heavenly Father, bless those who cannot be with us today. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Citizens hand over heart, former military, hand the brow salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I know we do have one agenda addition. Mr. Everson, do you have any more besides this one?
We actually have 2 agenda additions.
2? Okay.
today. Do you want me to go ahead and read the first
Yeah,
one?
let's read them.
Okay, the first one is resolution number 71 of 2020, and it's a resolution proclaiming September as Sickle Cell Awareness Month in Caddo Parish.
Move to add to the agenda.
All right, the chair will second. Commissioners will allow citizens' comments for one moment. I will open this up to the floor to allow any citizens to speak either for or against expanding the agenda to add this agenda addition. Mrs. Glover, please approach the mic. And Ms. Glover, just tap on that really quick. Make sure that the mic is on.
No, it's not. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
John Glover, 9100 Walker Road, apartment 121, Shreveport, 71118. It said Sickle Cell Month. Do we know what month we were speaking to? Because September. And that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. All right, do I see any other citizens that would like to make a comment under the declaration of open comments? I see none. Declare these closed. Commissioners, we will vote on adding this, or expanding the agenda and adding this resolution. Please vote. All right, that passes unanimously. That will get added to the agenda. We have the second agenda addition, Mr. Everson.
And that is regarding community COVID testing, and it's a motion to approve Clinical Pathology Laboratories Incorporated as an additional testing entity for the program funded by ordinance number 5967 of 2020. Currently listed entities are LSU and Oxnard.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. Commissioner Cawthorn, would you like to make a motion to add
Yeah.
this to the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to add this to the agenda.
Second.
Is that second by Commissioner Lazarus? All right, thank you. All right, Commissioners, we will take a brief moment to allow this open for comments for the citizens that would either like to speak for or against expanding the agenda to add this agenda addition. I see none. I'll declare this opportunity closed. Commissioners, please vote on expanding the agenda and adding this. All right, that also passes unanimously with one abstention. Commissioner Watts, would you like to declare your reason for abstention?
Yes, this ordinance 5967 includes Oshner, and I'm employed at Oshner. That's my reason for abstention.
All right. All right, rolling along, Mr. Everson.
All right, we're at citizens' comments. I know that we have received at least one request for comment.
I have one citizen's comments from a Mr. Will James. Mr. James, are you in the audience? Welcome, sir. All right, citizens who wish to address the commission on any issue other than zoning, please fill out the comment card located in the chamber foyer and return to the parish or the clerk of the commission. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes. Mr. James, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Greetings to all the commissioners. I thank you very much for allowing me this moment to speak. I wanted to speak on 2 quick issues during the time frame. The first issue regarding the protest that myself along with several other lead organizers have been leading throughout the area, not just for the past 5 months, but for several years. In regards specifically to the Confederate monument that's actually being relocated, we are aware of the new location that it's being sent to. We're imploring the commission to actually expedite the process. It seems like every 30 days we see that something is delaying the process, and I'm only too happy to lead peaceful protests. A lot of citizens are expressing frustrations with hardly seeing anything. We hear the news, but we see nothing actually being done. So we're asking whatever can be done to actually help expedite the process. I understand that there are checks and balances and procedures that have to be performed, but we're imploring you to actually expedite this. We shouldn't have to wait until the end of October, November, so on, however long it takes to relocate it. Also, with every Saturday from sundown until 11:30, we will be holding protests that speak out against symbols of racism, as well as against the uptick that's actually taking place with the gun violence in our community. We're speaking with different citizens on what we can do to go ahead and actually help ourselves, but we're imploring also our politicians to not only create standards that react to the gun violence, as far as the press conference that took place with the Sheriff's Office, SPD, the Attorney General of the United States, and so on. We're asking what can be done to actually put preventative measures in place to actually lessen the amount of crimes. We're only too happy to hear what's going to be the consequences that happen for any gun crimes that happen, but what is actually being put in place to actually prevent this? What presences are actually being put in place to where it actually deters these crimes from happening? The community is more than willing to speak with any politicians that we have here about it, but all we keep hearing is what's going to happen after the gun crimes. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. James, thank you for coming down, and if you would hang out for a moment, we'll request Dr. Wilson to give us an update on the monument. Thank you, sir. Mr. Everson, I don't have any more other than that one.
Okay, then, the next item on our agenda is, when the commission sits as the tax board of review for the tax assessments for the year 2021, I should say.
It's 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're not
It was
that far
correct.
yet. Okay, my name's Charlie Hennington, assessor for Caddo Parish. I have a short letter like I do every year for you. It's, dear members of the Board of Review, as assessor in and for the parish of Caddo, this is to certify that the assessments on property located in and or accessible in Caddo Parish have been listed and assessed in accordance with Title 47, Section 1992. It is further certified that the said assessments have been exposed for public review for 15 calendar days beginning August 27th, 2020 and ending September 10th, 2020. Said certification of the above is given to the Board of Review as required by Title 47, Section 1992. As of right now, I think we have 2 appeals. The deadline for the appeals is September 28th, so it's a little longer this year because that's how y'all have your meetings at the beginning and the end of the month. So I won't know till the 28th if we have any appeals, if we haven't worked anything out with the folks at that time. Usually typical, the appeal date is the Monday, y'all's working meeting, I think, before your next meeting. And I think your next meeting is the 8th, so that would be that Monday before that. So,
Charlie, I don't see any commissioners with any questions.
okay. But, as soon as I find out any more, I'll give Jeff a call.
Thank you for coming down.
I have a
question here.
Any questions?
We do, we have Commissioner Everson.
Mr. Harrington,
Yes.
do you have the addresses on the one that you have now?
No, I don't have anything on it with me.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
All right.
Everson.
Thank
See
you.
no other commissioners. Thank you, Charlie.
All right, appreciate it.
All right.
Mr. Everson, are you back on the board, or is that still from before?
You can take it off.
Okay. All right, Mr. Everson?
Okay, we will be moving on to visitors, but before I do that, I should just let you all know that the broadcasting is going fine on the internet, but they are having some difficulty with the restream to Facebook. So if you have any constituents who are trying to watch on Facebook, please direct them to the commission's webpage where they can view it if they're having problems. So that brings us again to visitors. I'm not aware of any. Would you like me to move on?
Yes, sir.
To adopt a regular
Move to
session?
adopt.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Vice President Johnson, second by Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak on that? Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes, I'd like to make a substitute motion
Thank
to
you.
move and englobo all regular session and special
Second.
session minutes.
Second.
All right. I also have Commissioner Lazarus on there. Did you
I
want
was gonna do the same thing.
Okay. I don't think you were gonna do that. All right, commissioners, please vote. All right, that passes 10 with 2 out of the chamber.
All right, and that brings us to special resolutions. You have a few special resolutions. The first one is a special proclamation proclaiming, and keep in mind, these are ones that we weren't able to address when we weren't able to do it via teleconference. So you have a special proclamation proclaiming August 2nd, 2020.
Mr. Everson, I didn't want you to have to read all those. Commissioner Johnson made a motion to englobo and adopt all special proclamations, seconded by Commissioner Watts. Would any commissioners like to address? I see none. Please vote. That passes 11 with 1 out of the chamber.
Okay, and that brings us to communiques and committee reports. This is the administration response to information requests from commissioners from the other day. And you had requested a report from the Charter Review Committee. Their chairman, Tom Arsenault, is here. Another request that was made the other day was for the Chamber COVID-19 protocols to be attached on the agenda. You'll find them in this section.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Really quick, guys, I didn't know if Mr. James had to get back to work. If he had to get back to work, he came down here for some answers.
Okay.
Could you address that really quick, Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this will be very brief.
You want to go ahead and give an update?
Basically, we are in the process of drafting.
Can't hear you.
We're in the process of drafting the request for proposals. We should have that finished within about a week and a half, and then the proposals will be let, and we'll have to have, I believe it's a minimum of 45 days in this state for persons to submit their proposals to be graded on certain criteria to select the contractor to actually perform the work.
Thank you, Attorney Frazier. I have Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I just want to, I got a chance to kind of listen in to Mr. James. Mr. Jones, thank you for your advocacy, but you know, we've put up quite a fight to get us to where we are, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you more than we appreciate the criticism, because some of y'all act like we hadn't done anything. We don't need to get here and get rushed and get something wrong, and then we end up back in court. You know, some folks just got to the party. I saw some of the rallies down there, and it was, y'all make it think that we hadn't done anything. But our legal team, our administration, and this commission body, we've gone through every step that we can to get this thing done. Commissioner Epperson, you've been part of this fight for 30, 40 years?
19.
19
Not that
years.
old.
19 years. I saw a video where a man, I can't think of his name, but he's gone and died where he walked door to door with a petition. So we're doing our part. So don't, it hurts me when I see people come down here and say, y'all moving too slow. We gotta follow the law. We got to follow the law. Because what we don't want to do is make a mishap and we end up back in court on a technicality. And I know Attorney Frazier probably saying, well, Commissioner Jackson, take some of your own advice. Slow down. But what I'm saying is, we moving. And we making sure administration is moving. And administration is making sure legal is moving. So we'd appreciate it if when y'all go out there and y'all having the rallies on the step, if y'all was so motivated to move it, when y'all had 5,000, 6,000 people down there, y'all could have moved it. Hello? We're doing our part. I appreciate your advocacy. I appreciate your concern, but let's work together to get this done. Because now the people in Mansfield are upset because it's coming down there. They trying to find a way to block it from coming down there. So we trying to do our part. And I saw where Hershey is writing, saying the parish ought to do this and do that. We got to make sure all, as my second grade teacher said, all our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Vice President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Attorney Frazier.
Yes.
Haven't we been pushing you guys let's get this done. Let's get this done.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. And also, we wanted to make sure that we fulfill the law and what we did. We wanted to also make sure that we extinguish all of their appeals. Am I right?
Correct.
All right. And this is something that has been going on for many years, and we wanted to make sure we did it right. It's a statement that goes out. You measure twice and cut once, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that we did all our correct steps, so that when it starts to come down, it's coming down, and there's no stopping. And haven't we basically expedited everything that we possibly could?
Correct.
Okay, so I just wanted that to go on the record so that when 5 years from now or 6 months from now, somebody says, well, y'all didn't do what y'all was supposed to do. But the record will reflect that we have been doing what we should be doing in the timely manner that it takes. COVID-19 delayed it somewhat because it shut down the court systems. So we have been pushing to get this done. You know, the news comes out and say it's gonna move, and then there's an appeal process. So we let them go through the appeals process. Once they extinguished all of that, then we had to wait until they found the location. I mean, we could have took it down, but where we were gonna put it? We had to store it somewhere, which would have then waste taxpayers' dollars on storing it somewhere. So let's take it down one time and move where it needs to go, and then it's up to them to do whatever they're gonna do with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President. Commissioner Epperson.
I wanted to go on the
Okay.
communiques out of the administration.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Commissioner Simmons,
All right, Dr. Wilson, I'm
just
assuming
wanna
that
add-
concludes the report in regards to the monument.
Yes, sir, I'll yield to Commissioner Jackson, then I'll
Okay.
comment.
Commissioner Jackson, you have the floor.
I just want to add something to that. Attorney Frazier, who owns, or who have we said owns that monument?
The Daughters of the
The
Confederacy.
Daughters of Confederacy, their monument. And that's what makes this process, because if I'm correct, Attorney, in the other situations, the public entities have claimed ownership of those monuments, correct?
Correct.
You don't have a private entity involved.
That's correct.
And so what makes our process much different and much more convoluted is we have a private entity involved.
That's correct.
So we have had to tread very lightly. So it's not our monument, it's our property that it sits on. But it's not our monument, so we can't just go out there and be haphazard about it. So I think our team has done a great job in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson.
Hey, President Shaw, there's one last comment regarding the monument. You know, the commission passed emergency measures to put a wall around the monument. The ZBA just met yesterday and gave its approval to have the wall temporarily where it's at. So we do have to follow a process all the way through the process. And that being said, just one other comment regarding the storm damage, the recent storm we had come to the area. The Veterans Service Center was completely declared destroyed, and we have to replace it, and the estimated replacement cost was $1.4 million. We can't fix it back to its original condition. The insurance company looked at it, and they declared it destroyed, so we'll be pressing on. We in the process now of getting some engineering work to look at a new building. We temporarily have the Veterans Service Center housed in the old regional lab on Vine Street. Just want to make you aware of that, and we will report that number to Homeland Security. They
Thank you,
keep
Dr.
track of it.
Wilson. All right,
That
that
concludes my comments,
concludes
sir.
that topic. Let's move on. Mr. Everson will allow Mr. Arsenault to come give the report.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to serve. We did prepare a written report, and I'll give you a very brief summary, and then be happy to answer any questions that you may have. You appointed several of us. There are several people that are mentioned in the charter. They were certainly members, and then you appointed 6 members, citizens who are a very representative body. We met on the 7th, the 23rd of July, the 3rd and 11th of August, and on August the 25th to consider the various amendments that were suggested. We sent out some press releases and asked for people to comment and make suggestions. The charter has now been in place for quite some time, so that if there were issues, we felt that people would be able to tell us what they thought those issues were. So we considered 13 possible amendments to the charter that were suggested by various people. our recommendation to you was for you to consider three. The first one has to do with meetings. It probably took the most discussion and is the most controversial of those. I will point out that the proposed amendment that is the language of that amendment that was passed on to you, first of all, requires that that your meeting schedules comply with state law. And then secondly, that there be some additional requirement for meetings, for virtual meetings that would essentially keep you from making your own decisions and depriving citizens of their opportunity to have meetings in public. So I commend that language to your reading. There was a good bit of discussion and frankly wordsmithing of that one before it received the committee's recommendation. The second one, the other two are very technical. One is kind of a cleanup to have the president be a particular person under the Louisiana Homeland Security and Emergencies Assistance and Disaster Act. That was recommended by the administration to take care of some applications for funding and those kinds of things that you needed to do. The third one takes the Department of Fleet Services out of the charter. That was one that was proposed 4 years ago, and it may have just been so far down the list that people got tired of voting and it didn't pass. But it was not at all controversial, and I think it would be a matter of raising some dollars, saving you some dollars in the long run. But those two were obviously not very controversial. We provided you with a list of the 10 others that we considered and for the most part determined were not necessary. There were things that you could do by ordinance or were governed by existing state law that took care of the issues that were there. I'll be happy to answer any questions about any of those or any other topics that you think I might be able to provide information for you on.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenault, for that report. I have Commissioner Young on the board. Commissioner Young?
Thank you, Mr. Arsenault. I had a question. Thank you, Mr. President. I had a question about one of the amendments that was suggested for the charter review from the charter review committee. I can't pull it up on my screen in front of me. It's the one about virtual meetings.
Yes, sir. That's the first one.
So I wanted to ask you how you would describe that as differing from the current state of the law. My understanding of the current state of the law is if we, for any reason like an emergency, if we decide it's not safe to meet in person, by majority, 6 of us or a majority of us wouldn't show up to meet in person, and then the meeting wouldn't happen. How does that different from the way that this sort of codifies that?
I don't really think this codifies that in what I understand. And again, I'm speaking to you not as a legal representative. I'm speaking to you as the chairman of a committee. But our understanding of the law is that right now the Louisiana Open Meetings Law governs when and under what circumstances you would be able to meet other than in person. As I perceive it, state law would have to say something else for you to do that. But if state law did, then this would come into play. The additional language that was added, Mr. Young, had to do with some kind of a outside party having to declare an emergency so that the body could not itself declare an emergency and then meet virtually. That was the interest, and that's what the additional language was added to address. And whether, that's up to y'all whether you think it's addressed appropriately. Or our feeling on that was it had been suggested by a member of the commission. And as a result of that, we felt that we should pass that on with our comments so that you could make the ultimate decision whether or not that ought to be passed on to the citizens. We're we're a review and recommending body. The ultimate decision to put something on the ballot is yours.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Epperson.
Yes, I had requested that change and it went through legal. This isn't anything to circumvent state law. If you notice in the proposal, it says in accordance with state law. All we are doing is adding an option in 3-07, which already has an option for our regular meetings, that we will, in the event that we're in compliance with state law, be able to meet at any means necessary if virtually is required, in accordance with state law. Because we realize that anything we do cannot circumvent state law as well as federal law. Plain and simple, just an edification within that particular item. Am I correct? Am I correct, Ms. Frazier?
That is correct.
Okay, that's it. No more, no less.
Commissioner Epperson, thank you for that soldier's recap. That helped me understand, because I wasn't too clear on what Mr. Arsenault had advised us on.
And I wasn't able to get there, but I sent it in electronically, and I did speak it over with the attorney, and we understand we aren't circumventing anything, because we know we cannot usurp state law nor federal law. However, 307 governs our meetings. So we at a point now where, hey, we never knew this would happen. We could have an earthquake, or a plane could crash in this building, whereas it's not structurally safe and sound for us to meet here, or virtually we'll go in. You see what I mean? You never know.
That's right.
Okay, that's all that is.
Commissioner Talafield, you're on the board?
I am. Just for a brief comment, I'm not a wordsmith, so I apologize. But in the same verbiage, in the event of the National Declaration of Disaster and Emergency, is it, when we get down to the commission shall meet via teleconference, could we just, I don't know, is it possible maybe may or shall, or may shall, or what was the shall part? Is just enlighten me there.
I frankly don't recall,
Okay.
but it's my understanding that the commission has the ability to do whatever it wants with our recommendation, including making changes in the verbiage that's been transmitted,
All
Mr.
right, thank you.
Talaferro.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you, Mr.
Talaferro.
President.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioners, I was sent a message to ask all the commissioners to wear your mask, but I just want to make a legal check. Attorney Frazier, obviously the president doesn't have the power to force anybody to wear a mask. What is the legal ramifications of myself recommending somebody to wear a mask or asking them to wear a mask?
Do you mean in the chamber?
Yes, ma'am.
That is for you all to decide by protocol in accordance with the mask mandate that is statewide at
Okay.
this particular time. And I believe the mask mandate is that if you cannot social distance, that you ought to have a mask in an indoor space.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Frazier. Commissioners, I was sent a message, and we're all adults here. I'm not going to tell you what to do, so it's up to your decision. Commissioner Talafield, are you back on the
Chairman,
board
No,
again?
no, that was it.
I'm confused. Now, what, does this have something to do with the charter review? What are we talking about?
No, I was sent a message asking myself to ask the commissioners who are not wearing a mask to put on their mask. But like I said, I wanted to get a legal opinion on if if that's my responsibility to ask you guys to wear a mask.
But didn't we state that if we are speaking, we can remove it while we're speaking?
No.
Okay,
I
all
would,
right, that's fine.
Commissioner Epperson,
That was my
I would
mistake.
rather do that. I would. I'm with you.
I mean, what
because
about just open it?
Right, it
open the
makes it
vent?
makes it easier to speak, but
I can open the hood if I'm speaking. But it doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure here. I just want to get an understanding. Okay, but keep our mask on. That's what you're saying.
that's
All right. I got no issues with that.
That's part of
I
this
don't think no
protocol.
one else up here does.
That's part of this protocol that the administration sent us, is to keep it on the whole time we in here, and that includes the speaker.
Thank you, VP.
We got you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Talaferro, you're still on the board.
No, I'm good,
You're
Mr.
done. Okay,
President.
I'll clear that off. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes, I guess it's to legal, give me a little clarity. On the last portion, it says, until it's declared to be safe for all to return in person meetings by a majority of the commissioners. So how will that work?
Basically, as long as there is a declared emergency, when you all feel it's safe to come back into the chamber, and it's not in contrary with anything from the state, you all can vote to come back into the chamber.
Okay. I just needed that clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Young?
I have a question for Attorney Frazier.
Absolutely.
Just to repeat sort of my question to get sort of a legal analysis of this, it says, to the extent allowed by law, we could conduct Caddo Parish business virtually until a majority of the commissioners say it's safe to return. Is that different from what we just did in this last several months, where a majority of us didn't feel it was safe to return, and then a majority of us did, and now we're here? Does this language change anything about the present state of our ability to do this thing?
Not really, Commissioner, because you all have the decision to make whether or not you're going to show up to support a quorum.
Right.
And the state law dictates whether or not the quorum can be met virtually or has to be in person.
So your analysis is that this wouldn't change the rules. This is just a restatement of the way that we operate now.
That's correct. Except you've been flying kind of by the seat of your pants, because we've been in an emergency situation that's been changing from month to month. This is something that's going to be there regardless of the situation.
Okay, so do you think that this is something, in your legal opinion, is this going to confer a benefit on our procedure, or is it just?
Is it what now? I apologize.
Is this? I didn't hear what you said.
Could you repeat your question?
Oh yeah, in your legal opinion, will this confer some sort of benefit to the commission in operating in a time of emergency, or is it sort of redundant?
I would think, Commissioner, that the benefit would be that you all have this established, and it's not something that you got to look back on every time you have an emergency, nor do you have to look to an executive order every time you had an emergency. Say, for instance, when the emergency first started, we had to come into the chamber a couple of times to, not knowing if it was safe or not, in order to kind of suspend your own rules and start meeting in accordance with the proclamation. You wouldn't have to do that because you already have this mechanism in place.
I see. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. And I'll touch on that really quick. Does there have to be a state of declaration of emergency from not the governor, but from the parish president, whomever that may be at the time?
Commissioner, right now, the state law requires that there has to be a declaration within the jurisdiction. I do not believe the state law says whether or not it has to be from the governor, but it would be in accordance with whatever is currently in place under the open meetings law.
Okay. I guess what I'm asking is, absent of the governor's declaration, let's say there's just an emergency here in Caddo Parish, like what Commissioner Epperson said, and God forbid something to happen to whomever the president was. Could a majority of the commission then call the Zoom meeting, and would it be legal to address whatever they would like to put on the agenda?
Give me 1 second, Commissioner. Let's see. Thank you.
Right.
What I'm looking at is I'm looking for the current open meetings amendment.
Mr. Arson, I'm sorry
It
you're not
has
getting
to
paid
be
by the hour.
gubernatorially.
No problem, Mr. President.
It's a gubernatorially
Yes.
declared state of emergency, so no, it's not if the parish declares one.
So it's only if the governor declares one?
Correct.
Okay. That concludes my questions, but thank you for volunteering.
Been working on my smizes, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenault.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question for Mr. Arsenault.
Mr. Arsenault, I think Commissioner Jackson has one more question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Attorney Arsenault. Just in your opinion, this process that y'all exercised, that y'all went through, do you see it beneficial? I think we go through it every 4 years or 10
Yes, sir.
years or something like that. One, do you see the benefit of it, because you were a former local legislator, but two, do you think that the process that y'all went through, should we come back and modify, change it, or should we just send it directly to the citizens for their say on? Because ultimately, the voters have the final say on whatever is enacted or not enacted. The people, we the people, will get the final word on it. And so if they don't agree, they have the ultimate veto at the ballot box. Would you agree?
Well, obviously, the only way the charter could get amended is by a vote of the people, Mr. Jackson. I actually was not familiar with this particular provision of the charter, but I think it's a helpful provision. It's a helpful exercise. This body, I believe, has the ability to put forth a charter amendment any time that it wants to. And to call the election, but I actually think was pretty forward thinking to say periodically we ought to take a look at this thing and see if we need to make any changes. And what it does is it creates a vehicle for that review, and we did our best to ask citizens if they had particular things. You know, when you're operating a government, sometimes things come up. You say, gee, that sounded like a good idea at the time, but it's not such a good idea anymore. Or we think that there ought to be some structural changes. So what it does is, I think, to make sure that periodically it shows up primarily on your parish attorney's tickler to say this is something that we need to do. It may be that you could have a circumstance, but for the pandemic, the recommendations that are in this report are very technical, but they could be important. We have the same issue with state constitutions. One of the things that I think is helpful is to try and keep your parish charter as slim as possible, so that the elected representatives of the people have the opportunity and the flexibility to adapt to what there is without having to call an election and amending the charter. So I think this is a very helpful and farsighted provision in your charter that says every 4 years we got to look at this thing. And so maybe you look at it and say, hey, everything's cool. but I think it is very helpful, and I thought it was a good process. The members of particularly the lay members of the committee were very diligent in looking at these things. They came with, I think all the members of the committee came with open minds to really discuss these things, and they were given very serious attention by the members of the committee. So I think you did a good job in appointing people. I'll reserve judgment about me, but in terms of the other citizens, they were terrific, and I thought it was a very good process. There was no attempt on the part of the charter mandated people. Your president, Ms. Frazier, and Dr. Wilson in no way tried to force anybody to think a particular way or to view an amendment in a certain way. They certainly had perspective about how the government was working, and that's very important. I think, as you all know, once you sit on the other side of this of this podium, things look a little different. They work a little differently, and sometimes people don't understand. So if it were purely citizens, I think you could end up with things that could possibly be unworkable. But we were able to draw on the experience and expertise of your administration and your able president to really look at these things in an objective way. And I think the result is a good result. There's some, that first one, you got some policy decisions. That's what you got elected to do. It's not what we got appointed to do. So I'll leave that to you. But I think that it's a very good process. And really, as I say, is a far-sighted circumstance to say every 4 years we're going to look at it. So thank you for the question, Mr. Jackson.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Archer, that was a great recap, and I applaud you for the way you ran the meetings. It was very precise, organized, complete. It was very nice, and I agree with you. After sitting on this side of government, Commissioner Jackson and Vice President said it when Mr. James was here. Things move a little differently in government, and just because you don't see it happen immediately, there's definitely people at work all day long. So thank you for that. Commissioner Epperson, I see you on the board.
Just wanted to say reactive as well as being proactive. A very, very good item that we have in our protocol to review this every so often. And for the most part, out of the 22 years I've been here, basically nothing has come out of the committee for changes. But still, in all, the ultimate decision belongs to the citizens. That's all.
Well said. Mr. Arso, I see no one else on the board. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Mr. Everson?
That brings us to the president's report.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. I was going to talk about the monument, and I think Commissioner Jackson kind of alluded to some of the stuff. Commissioners, it's been a long, hard road, and when I read the report about the United Daughters of Confederacy, proud of the spot that it's getting moved to, and that everybody came to a good conclusion. There's been a lot of debates. This has been going on for years, and obviously people from different sides thinking different ways. But the fact that at the end of the day, you have two different opposing sides that came together and agreed on something, that something is getting funded and the action is going to take place. I applaud everybody that worked very hard to do this. Commissioner Jackson stated a couple of the players that had worked really hard to do that. I know Commissioner Lynn, who's no longer here, worked in conjunction with you guys hard on that as well. So to have a happy resolution, so to speak, that all sides are amicable about that, it speaks volumes that even though in the world things may be crazy here in Caddo Parish, we can actually find some common ground and agree on some stuff. And it's nice that we live and work in a situation like that. So I applaud this horseshoe, and I applaud all the people that work tireless hours. I know I asked our clerk to get a plaque made because we have a chairman that chaired the citizen committee, R.J. Johnson, and he did a tireless job. He did an amazing job, and he left politics out of it and ran great citizen meetings. So I know he's working on getting a plaque made that we can present to him whenever the date comes that the monument does get relocated. And I think it's going to be a happy day for a lot of people. So I'd like to congratulate him with that plaque and say, thank you for the service that you served for Caddo Parish. That concludes my report. Mr. Everson?
We're at public hearing.
Hold up. I had wanted to go on after the administrator. The reason that I spoke was because, people was addressing the charter review deal. And I see, you still up too for it?
I also wanted to say something in communiques. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, guys.
So
I went.
Mr.
Mr. Everson told me to do the president's report, so I was just going to touch on that. Let's retract back and go to the Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to briefly say about agenda item 13.8, which is ordinance 5979, about the COVID childcare funding package. Dr. Nancy Alexander is here. If any commissioner has any question for her about that program, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Epperson.
In reference to the Rebel Monument, I'd like to let Mr. James as well as others know the issue was getting 7 votes. Since we started on this thing over 19 years ago, it always was 6-6. I ask you to go back in the records. The actual catalyst to this situation was Mr. Matthew Lynn, the 7th vote. So let's make sure we give credit where credit is due. Go back and look at all of the minutes from March of 2001, and you'll see every time something came up, it was 6-6. Basically right down Democrat and Republican. So Mr. Lynn is to be commended for giving that 7th vote to get this thing rolling. So I want to let you all know that. Also, I would like to once again thank all of our medical personnel, everyone in our healthcare industry that's working with the COVID-19, not only through the state of Louisiana, but throughout the nation, and especially our Louisiana National Guard. They have been taxed, ladies and gentlemen, very, very hard. COVID testing they've been called to do, sitting up field hospitals and Morial Convention Center in New Orleans and other places, taking medical personnel from their staff, all the while a lot of them just got back from deployment, as well as should be in training that are getting ready to be deployed in the future. In addition to tornadoes, hurricanes, and floods. Not an easy task, so let us not forget about the sacrifices that they make. Today, as of 1:07 p.m., there were 6,724,179 cases of COVID in the United States. It's up 28,985 cases. The deaths, 199,746, up 631 cases. The state of Louisiana, 159,865, up 612. The deaths, 5,294, up 16. Caddo Parish, 8,001, up 72. Total deaths to this point, 337, holding no change since yesterday. I don't know if many of you remember what day this is, but September the 17th, 1787, the Constitution of the United States of America was signed. It's 4,400 words. It's the oldest and shortest written document in the world of any major government. There's a spelling error that's there, and that state is Pennsylvania. There were 39 men who signed the Constitution. And by signing that document, the main character in there was all who were born by, or through naturalization would become U.S. citizens. 233 years old today. Happy birthday. Also, tomorrow, September the 18th, we'd like to wish the United States Air Force 73-year-old birthday. Moved from the Army Air Corps. Also, on the 18th, tomorrow, POW MIA Day, September the 18th, 1979, President Jimmy Carter designated that proclamation the 3rd Friday of September of each year. And yes, President Jimmy Carter was a United States Navy veteran, worked in the nuclear industry. And most of you know that our submarines are all nuclear powered now. Dr. Wilson, do we have a POW? I know we requested one to be here, but do we fly one at our courthouse? A POW MIA flag?
Let me check.
We do? Okay.
Let me check.
Good, okay. Just wanted to make sure. 73,515 World War II persons was missing in World War II of POWs. 1,626 missing from the Vietnam era. Of that 41,000 that was lost, of that figure, 41,000 are lost at sea. To include, many of you may remember the USS Gillette, which Caddo Parish funded a war bond issue to fund that submarine. All 85 members were killed June the 17th, 1943, including one individual from Caddo Parish, Mr. James Caslin Bickham. Mr. Bickham lied about his age so he could serve his country. He snuck in at the age of 17, so we don't want to ever forget that. There are 126 that are missing of the Cold War, and there are 6 that are missing in the various conflicts we've been having in Iraq, Afghanistan, and those places since 1991. September the 27th, the 4th Sunday in every month is the last Sunday, in September of every year, in which this year is the fall. September the 27th is a day to recognize and honor those who lost a son or a daughter while serving in the armed services. That's designated as Gold Star Mothers and Family Day. And to my knowledge, there are 2 that I constantly stay in contact with. Miss Donna Hughes, whose son Dakota Hughes, a citizen of Caddo Parish, in the town of Greenwood, a Huntington High graduate, lost his life on November the 9th, 2010 in Afghanistan. Also, I stay in contact with Miss Teresa Patty. Her son, Sergeant Richard L. Vasquez of DeSoto Parish, Mansfield, lost his life in Afghanistan November 13, 2013. Portions of Highway 175 leading through Mansfield, Louisiana is designated in Sergeant Vasquez's honor. We also dedicated a street in Greenwood in honor of Dakota Hughes. Our Veteran Celebration Committee will remotely be recognizing our veterans' activities this year because of the COVID-19 situation, and I will continue to keep you all posted. I've given each of you a copy of our book from last year. I would ask that you would look through it. Let us not get in touch. Let us call and thank our sponsors from last year for their continued support. DeSoto Parish, Caddo Parish, City of Shreveport, Bossier City, and Bossier Parish Police Jury are strong supporters of our efforts. This would have been our 9th year of our honor ceremony and our parade, which has been designated the largest veteran ceremony and parade in the state of Louisiana since World War II. Dr. Wilson, the West Shreveport Alliance, in conjunction with Shreveport Green, Timberline Homeowners Association, Twilight Meadows, Western Hills Estate, Steeplechase, Yarborough, Fairway Forest, Greenwood Acres, West Peak Association will hold a area cleanup. We will sweep from South Lakeshore Drive down the Pines Road corridor to Industrial Loop. And we will also go from Pines Road West down Greenwood Road, Jefferson Page Road to Rice Road. Before Mr. Glass left, I had got in conjunction with him. He's going to give us two bins. We'll let him know where we designate that. We're trying to bring pride back to our communities. Also, I met today with the leadership at the General Electric plant. The General Electric plant, corner of West 70th and Industrial Loop, they have merged and they're going to be called Prolect GE. They're merging with a company out of Mexico. They are contemplating expanding the operations here in Shreveport as well as increase hiring. Ashley Bussard and myself from NLE, we met this morning and we'll be giving further details, and I told them once they are ready if they would come down and give a presentation to the committee. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson, and thanks for remembering all the National Guard guys that are down there, that my son's included, so heartfelt for
Mine
that.
too. He said, Dad, every time I turn around, we're going right back.
And
Plus,
mine's
they getting
leaving,
ready to be deployed.
mine's leaving for Saudi Arabia in November, so
Yeah, well, they won't tell them where they going, but they going somewhere.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to remind everyone that Tuesday, September 23rd is National Voter Registration Day. There are several voter registration drives that will be taking place throughout our parish. On Saturday, September 19th, there will be one held at the corner of Walker Road in Burt Coons. The early voting has been extended, and those dates are October 16th through the 27th, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., excluding Sundays. I would like to encourage everyone to request your mail-in ballots now, since we don't have access to ballot drop-off locations or boxes like most states. Plan how you're going to vote now. While we've made so many accommodations during this pandemic, seems like overnight in some instances, it seems that it could take up to a year for us to have another early voting satellite location. I do still beg to differ that, and we should continue to do everything we can to help provide and protect a safe environment for our citizens in Caddo Parish to early vote. So we have been proactive in a lot of things, but I think that we're being reactive right now. Again, I encourage the citizens to have a plan, since Caddo does not have a plan at this time to vote. Voting doesn't cost us anything, but it costs some everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. Guys, I want to tell you a cool story. Yesterday, I saw one of our animal service officers drive by my office downtown, and I saw him chasing about 4 or 5 dogs. So I said, man, I'm going to give him a hand. And I drove around and got out, put on some gloves to try to rile them in for whomever was driving. The coolest thing was it was Mr. Travis Clark that got out of the car. So to say that the director of the organization is doing the lowest guy on the totem pole, so to speak, work, that speaks volumes. That he's putting on his gloves and getting in the truck and go out there and doing the hard work. I thought that was pretty awesome. And that wouldn't he didn't know that was my office. I got out to help, and I didn't know it was him. And the fact that it was him, I thought that was really cool. So Dr. Wilson, that's awesome. Got a good team down there that he's wanting to do that. On that same token, I'm sorry. On that same token, got a call about some mosquitoes on 2909 Hart, and they said that they're going to go spray there today. So thank you for that. But I did get another message, 416 Tony Drive, that the grass is like 4 feet tall. If you can have one of the guys go head that up. And then last, I know they're hurting at the hospitals for blood. I know Commissioner Gage Watts, you probably know a lot about this, but KSLA is putting on a blood drive tomorrow from 4:30 in the morning till 1 p.m. At the 1812 Fairfield Avenue Studios. So they desperately need some blood for the local hospitals.
They do.
So if you haven't given blood lately, please go down there and give some blood.
We had a blood drive today, but it's too late now to ask anyone to go by Oshner LSU Health and give some blood, because they'll be done in about 10 minutes.
If you missed today, there's definitely one tomorrow. I see I'm sorry, Commissioner Epperson.
You didn't compliment me on my T-shirt today. My
Big Pop,
grandkids.
the man, the myth, the bad influence. I love it.
All right. Thank you.
I like the Army one a lot. I like that one too. All right, Mr. Everson, rolling along.
Okay, we're at public hearing on zoning ordinances and cases. We don't have public hearing on those today. We do have quite a few public hearings in our next section. This is public hearings on ordinances. Our first one is on ordinance number 5963 of 2020. And it's an ordinance to set the general purpose and special purpose millages, providing for millage rate adjustments as allowed by Article 7, Section 23 of the Louisiana Constitution of 1974 and Louisiana Revised Statutes 47:1705B, levying and imposing taxes and assessments for 2020 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Caddo, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. Yes, Commissioner.
Just either to the clerk or to the attorney, can't we just have the clerk open it up, or maybe read them all, open it up all at one time, for or against? Because they've already been read, just in the interest of time. He read them all at once, and then the chairman opens it up all at one time, and then we close it.
I'm amicable to that. Attorney Frazier,
That's
is that
fine.
legal and okay?
So yeah, if you just, you know,
Okay,
instead of starting and stopping.
sure.
Okay.
Mr.
You
Everett,
want me to go ahead and proceed?
just read through the entirety.
Yeah.
I'll
Grab
do
you
it.
a bottle of water, and then we'll open the floor up.
I know, right? I've got a drink here. There's quite a few, but I'll start the reading. Okay, then we just read ordinance 5963. The next one is ordinance number 5964 of 2020. An ordinance setting the assessment of property classified as timberlands and to instruct the assessor to include said assessment on the tax roll of the parish of Caddo for the year 2020 and otherwise provide with respect thereto. The next one is ordinance number 5965 of 2020. And it is an ordinance to adopt the values fixed or to be fixed by the Louisiana Tax Commission on all assessments for railways and other public service corporations, and to instruct the assessor to extend such assessments and values on the tax roll of the parish of Caddo for the year 2020 and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. The next item is ordinance number 5966 of 2020, an ordinance setting the parish millage for the purpose of paying principal and interest due in 2020 on outstanding parish bond issues and to instruct the assessor to include said millage on the tax roll of the parish of Caddo for the year 2020 and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. The next item is ordinance number 5976, an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the oil and gas fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for a mental health hotline and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. Our next one is ordinance number 5977 of 2020, an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the oil and gas fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for Providence House Emergency Rental Assistance Program and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. And our next one is ordinance number 5978 of 2020, an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the general fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for the Metropolitan Planning Commission and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Our final ordinance in this section of public hearings is ordinance number 5979 of 2020, an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the oil and gas fund for the year 2020 and to provide an appropriation for child care centers for COVID-19 related expenditures and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. All right. I will declare this opportunity open if anyone would like to speak either for or against. There's not a lot of citizens, but any citizens in the chamber that would like to speak on any of the prior ordinance that Mr. Everson read. Miss Glover?
John Glover, 9100 Walker Road, apartment 121.
Welcome, Ms. Glover.
Shreveport, 71118. For every ordinance that has oil and gas fund attached to it, how does that work? If I'm not mistaken, Haley said the other day that we had a deficit or
Mr. Chairman.
something like that.
Yes, sir.
It's for or against. It's not public comment. It's just
Understand.
for or against those ordinances.
Ms.
So
Glover, in this.
how would I get an explanation prior to you all
Not public comment.
voting on it?
I'll address it. I'll ask the question for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Glover. Do I have any other citizens that would like to speak either for or against? All right, I declare this public hearing closed. Mr. Everson?
That brings us to zoning ordinances for final passage, of which we have none today. And then now we are at ordinances for final passage, where you'll have the opportunity to consider those ordinances we just had the public hearing for, starting with ordinance number 5963 of 2020, an ordinance to set the general purpose and special purpose millages, providing for millage rate adjustments.
Move
as
for
a-
adoption.
Mr. Everson, hold tight one second. The Vice President asked to make a motion. Sorry, Commissioner Everson.
I'd like to englobo and adopt ordinance 59, 63, 64, 65, and 66.
Second.
63, 64, 65, and 66?
Yeah, they all dealing with the millages.
All right, that's a motion by Commissioner, Vice President Johnson, second by Commissioner Atkins. Would you like to speak on that motion?
No.
Okay, I have Commissioner Epperson on the board.
No.
All right, no, all right. And then really quick, the question, we had the under ordinance for passage, what Ms. Glover asked, Attorney Frazier, I'd like to have you address that really quick.
Commissioner, that's not one of the ordinances that's subject of the motion,
Okay.
so it's not germane to the motion. at this
Got it.
time.
All right, I see no other commissioners on the board. Please vote. That passes 11 with one out of the chamber. All right,
All
Mr.
right,
Everson.
and that brings us to ordinance number 5976 of 2020, an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the oil and gas fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for a mental health hotline
So
and
move
to
for
otherwise provide
adoption.
perspective too.
Second by the chair. I have a motion by Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Jackson, would you like to speak on that motion?
No, it's Attorney Frazier, if y'all want to ask the
Okay.
question.
I'm
yeah.
gonna actually defer to Mrs. Barnett because I believe Ms. Glover's question had something to do with the shortage or, something with the oil and gas.
All right.
The oil and gas fund is in good standing. I believe the comment she might be referring to was on Monday. I said the oil and gas revenues had declined since last year, but that did not indicate that the oil and gas was in a deficit situation. It was just strictly that the revenues had declined since last year.
Thank you for that explanation, Haley.
And, Mr. Chairman, I do believe, Mrs. Barnett said that she was, when I had asked her that question, specifically, you did say that, you felt that, you had no worries about the state of it at this particular time. You felt that it was something that we could overcome. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Currently, for that fund in the year 2020, the revenues are greater than the expenses of the fund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for me.
You can always count on Commissioner Jackson for having a good memory. I'll say that. That sucker could bring something from 3 years ago. I'd be like, remember when you said? Like, yeah, I did say that. All right, I got this motion for ordinance number 5976 by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by the chair. Commissioner Jackson, would you like to speak on this motion?
No, that was it for me. Thank you.
All right. I see no other commissioners on the board. Please vote. That passes 11 with one out of the chamber. Mr.
Okay.
Everson?
That brings us to ordinance number 5977 of 2020. It's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the oil and gas fund for the year 2020.
So move for adoption.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Jackson, would you like to speak on your motion?
Yeah, I just would like to say that it's much needed. I appreciate Ms. Bryant for clarifying some things for me. I know that they're ready, Providence House is ready to work. I think they've already got some calls. I think Ms. Howard said that they were getting 60 to 75 calls per day. And they're working to try to fill that gap. And I believe Attorney Frazier did some research on how many evictions had been filed here in Caddo, and so it's much needed assistance. I can tell you that I've received at least 4 or 5 calls from individuals who are seeking assistance. So I think that this is much needed, and part of the moratorium at the federal level requires, if you read through the federal moratorium that the CDC and the Trump administration, President Trump issued, they specifically suggest or request that local governmental and state governments utilize CARES Act funding to provide rental assistance. And one of the declarations that individuals have to attest to before being able to adhere to the moratorium is that they've actively sought out a rental assistance program. And so this is in line with that, and Providence House is already running a program such as this, and so I think this is much needed assistance. And at the end of the day, the landlords will receive payments or some type of payments, while we're also preventing folks from being homeless at this time. So it's much needed, and I appreciate favorable passage. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to reiterate much of what Commissioner Jackson just said and remind everyone that the oil and gas fund will likely be reimbursed by CARES Act. So that further ensures that we don't have a financial shortfall with respect to the oil and gas fund balance. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioners, please vote. That passes 11 with 1 out of the chamber. Mr. Everson?
Okay, ordinance number 5978 of 2020 is next. It's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the general fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for the Metropolitan Planning Commission and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
A motion to adopt.
Second.
All right, Commissioners, this is something that we created about a month ago. We filed it under an emergency act to get it passed, to allow for the MPC to create a streamlined process so that businesses to not put themselves in danger, but that still need to do the process flow of filing zoning requests, certificate of occupancies, or whatever else they needed to do, could do it from the comfort of their home or their office, and allow some allocated money for Mr. Clark and his organization to streamline a process that would better serve the citizens of Caddo Parish. I know he's been working on this hard. Maybe later we can get a report from him, but I would appreciate your support on this. Please vote.
One question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir,
This
Commissioner.
CARES reimbursable also?
Yes, sir. This is CARES reimbursable.
Did y'all read the motion in the second?
All right, that passes 10 to 1 with 1 out of the chamber.
Okay, that brings us to ordinance number 5979 of 2020. It's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the oil and gas fund for the year
Move to
2020.
adopt.
Second.
I got a motion to adopt by, was that Commissioner Young?
Yes.
And that second was by whom? Commissioner Jackson? Commissioner Young, would you like to speak on that?
Briefly, yes. We talked about this on our Zoom meeting. It's much needed funding to keep the childcare industry running so that our economy can get back into operation. Dr. Nancy Alexander is here to answer any questions if anybody has any last minute questions about this, and I believe that it's just as likely as the other ordinances to be CARES Act reimbursable. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Epperson?
That
Oh, it's a carryover? All right. I see no commissioners on the board. Please vote.
And
That's passes with 10 to 1 and 1 out of the chamber. Move it along.
all right, that brings us to zoning ordinances for introduction by title. You have one today. It is ordinance number 5980 of 2020 in relation to zoning case 50-5-P, an ordinance to amend volume 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the Parish of Caddo as amended the Caddo Parish Unified Development Code by amending the zoning of property located on the south side of South Lake Shore Drive and 360 feet east of Jolly Napier Road, Caddo Parish, Louisiana, from R17 Single Family Residential Zoning District to RA Rural Agricultural Zoning District, and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. This is in District 12.
All right, thank you, Mr. Everson.
And that brings us to ordinances for introduction by title, of which you have a few today, and I will go ahead and read those.
Okay.
Ordinance number 5981 of 2020, an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the capital outlay and the oil and gas fund to provide an appropriation for the construction and improvement of Blanchard water lines that serve unincorporated areas within the Caddo Parish and the Beldigo water system, and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. May I get a point of information?
Yes, sir, we got a point of clarification. Commissioner
Okay.
Epperson.
Now, this is the one where we have that's that 1.1 million, right?
Yes.
I believe it is.
All right.
Dr.
Now-
Wilson?
Now, once we introduce it now, does it go to go to print? Where does it go next? It go to legal journal?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Epperson, Dr. Wilson didn't hear the question.
Does it go to the legal journal once we introduce?
For the, zoning ordinance?
No, ma'am.
This
The
is the one-
ordinance for the Bell Diageo water system.
Oh,
okay.
That's what we're talking about now.
Yes, sir.
yeah, by title, yes.
It does?
Yes.
Okay, and it's in its entirety where the dollar amount is shown and everything, right?
No, not by title, no.
No,
It's not?
no, I don't think that is, I would actually have to go and look at the state requirements for that. I know some ordinances we have to do like that if we are, doing a building or a bid, but because this is, actually something that they're doing as a state project, I'm not sure that that would be the requirement. Our part is not required to be done like that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Atkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder, this was referred to the Economic Development Committee, and we're working on a date for that. And Mr. Clark, did you receive my suggestion on 2 dates?
I did.
Is that circulating? I don't recall where we are with that right now.
We haven't selected the date yet, but we got your suggestions.
Okay,
we'll
so-
have that picked by tomorrow.
Okay, and then you'll notify the committee members at that time?
We will.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Mr. Commissioner Epperson, you'll of course be a part of that committee as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Mr. Everson?
Okay, ordinance number 5982 of 2020 is an ordinance proposing an amendment to the Caddo Parish Home Rule Charter relative to section 3-07, commission meetings and rules for presentation to the electorate and otherwise provide with respect thereto. And the next one is ordinance number 5983 of 2020, an ordinance proposing an amendment to the Caddo Parish Home Rule Charter relative to section 3-07, commission meetings and rules for presentation to the electorate and otherwise providing with respect thereto. The third one is ordinance number, or the fourth ordinance, but the third of these charter review, is ordinance number 5984 of 2020, an ordinance proposing an amendment to the Caddo Parish Home Rule Charter relative to section 5-05.2, Department of Fleet Services for presentation to the electorate and otherwise providing with respect thereto.
Move to englobo and adopt the minutes from August the 3rd, August 17th, August 31st, and September 14th.
Second.
All right, got a motion to adopt the work session minutes, 18-1, 18-2, 18-3, and 18-4, seconded by, is that you, Commissioner Atkins? All right. I have Commissioner Hopkins on the board.
Well, mine really was just a point of information on ordinance number that was introduced, ordinance number 5979, the zoning. It has Hopkins on there for Jolly Napier. I think it's District 12, is it not?
What'd you say?
It has one Hopkins for that zoning. Is that correct, or is that?
No, it's 12.
Okay.
We did initially get it, and it said it was in District 1, but then we mapped it and realized
Okay,
it was in
that-
District
that-
12. So that would probably be why.
I just wanted to reflect correctly.
Yeah, I
Thank you,
thought we
Commissioner
did.
Hopkins. All right, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. We have no commissioners on the board. Please vote. That passes with 11, 4, and 1 out of the chamber.
Okay, that brings us to resolutions.
Move to adopt resolution 51.
Got a motion by Commissioner Johnson for adoption of resolution number 51, and second by Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak on that?
No.
I see no commissioners on the board. Please vote.
Commissioners Epperson and Atkins need a vote.
It shows that it, there we go.
That passes 11 with one out of the chamber.
All right, resolution number 60 of 2020 is a resolution urging and requesting the United States Senate to pass the Voting Rights Advancement Act of
Move
2019.
for adoption.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Epperson, second by Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Epperson, would you like to speak on that?
No, sir.
Commissioner Johnson.
I'd like to be added. I thought I was added from Monday, but I don't see myself on there.
Would you accept that, Commissioner?
Yes,
All right.
yes, sir. I stated anything I put on the agenda, anyone is welcome to tag on.
All right.
As long as they don't try to change.
Without LBJ on
Right. I
All
would
right.
like to be added as a sponsor also.
All right.
I think we originally had that on as one of our Zoom items, and we were all on it, so I would like to be added back as well. Thank you.
Mr. Everson, okay, let's make sure you
We'll-
heard.
we'll make that
Commissioner
change.
Watts. All right, Commissioner Johnson, are you back on the board?
No.
Okay. All right, commissioners, please vote. And that fails.
And next is resolution number 68 of 2020, requesting the Louisiana Legislature and the Secretary of State to authorize adding 3 additional early voting locations throughout Caddo Parish.
Move
and
for adoption.
Second.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Epperson, second by Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Epperson, would you like to speak on that?
No, sir.
See no commissioners on the board, please vote. That passes 11 with one out of the chamber.
And that brings us to resolution number 70 of 2020, resolution supporting a request for capital outlay funding to upgrade Walter B. Jacobs Park.
To adopt.
Second. Got a motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by the chair. Commissioner Johnson, like to speak on that?
No.
All right. Commissioners, please vote. You're gonna get your lazy river.
Yeah, that's what I want. Lazy River.
Don't forget that, Dr. Wilson. Lazy
Yes, sir.
river. That passes with 11 and one out of the chamber.
Okay, and your next item is resolution number 70 of 2020. It's a resolution proclaiming September as Sickle Cell Awareness Month. in Caddo-
Resolution number 71. So moved.
Second by the chair. So, resolution 71, motion to adopt by Commissioner Watts. Would you like to speak on that, Commissioner Watts?
Sure, thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, this is a resolution that I present yearly in honor of National Sickle Cell Awareness Month. I proposed this resolution to raise awareness about sickle cell disease, about the debilitating effects that it has on mainly African Americans. It's a very rare blood disorder, and getting tested could prevent a child from being born with this painful, harmful immune deficiency disease. So I thank you all for your support in the past, and thank you in advance for your support on today. Dr. Wilson stepped out the chamber. I just wanted to add to this, to ask him if he would, I see Mrs. CAO over there. If you would ask Mr. Lawrence if he would shine the lights red at the courthouse to shine the light on sickle cell for the remainder of September.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. I see no other commissioners. Please vote.
Wait. Ms. Watts, Ms. Lily Bradford was running the
Yes.
sickle cell office now. Since she's passed, who's,
There's no executive director at this time. It may be 2021 before they decide on one. So during the pandemic and with her sudden passing, they're just trying to keep the organization running a few days a week.
that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Please vote. That passes 11 with one out of the chamber. Mr. Everson, don't forget the agenda edition 5967.
Absolutely, we'll get to that one under new business, thank you. The next section is old business. We do not have anything under that section. And then now that brings us to new business. where we have a couple of appointments to consider and then the other agenda additions.
Move to reappoint the two appointees.
Second? I got a motion by Commissioner, Vice President Johnson, second by Commissioner Atkins. Mr. Johnson, you want to speak on that?
No.
All right, I see no commissioners on the board. Please vote. That passes with 11 and 1 out of the chamber.
Okay, and then now we have the agenda addition, which is regarding community COVID testing. It's a motion to approve Clinical Pathology Laboratories Incorporated as an additional testing entity for the program funded by Ordinance 5967 of 2020. Currently listed entities are LSU and Ochsner.
Okay. Thank you. As I mentioned to several of my colleagues, what this has necessitated with scheduling conflicts with LSU and what they're currently doing.
So moved.
On the making.
There we go.
All right.
Neto.
Oh, okay. So what has necessitated this is scheduling conflict with LSU and the days in which they can provide testing for the 100-minute Shreveport. And so Clinical Pathology Laboratories Incorporated have the capacity to do the additional days during the week. And they are a national organization with 3 locations here in Shreveport-Bossier. And they also have the ability to turn the test results around in 24 hours. The only additional thing I want to add to this is that in as much as they are not a hospital or a medical school, the doctors and the nurses that will be taking the swabs will be independent people. And so in a process to protect the parish, I'm requesting my conversation with Attorney Frazier that the liability insurance and the particular insurance needed for the doctor and the nurses be presented to them before the execution of the contract. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawthorn. And as I understand it, this is no additional monies. This is
No additional money
Okay.
from the original funding.
Perfect. All right, I see no commissioners on the board. Please vote.
Mr. President, I'll be abstaining.
I understand.
Thank you.
That passes with 10, 1 abstention, and 1 out of the chamber.
All right, that brings us to communicating committee reports.
All right. Commissioner Epperson?
Dr. Wilson, and Walter Jacobs, and Commissioner Young too. Make sure y'all save enough room. We need to be visionaries about a zoo. All right? Y'all remember when we brought that up in the 90s?
19 years on that too.
And look, now you can laugh if you want to, but I'm a visionary.
I love it.
I had written an editorial in 1988 relative to an aquarium. You see, when they got the aquarium after everything is dead and gone. And like my old drunk uncle used to say at the family reunion, if I tell you that a duck dips snuff, raise his right wing and look under there and you'll see where he keep his snuff tin.
Or if that cheese on the moon, get your crackers ready.
Also, Purple Heart Day has passed, but I had intended to recognize, some of you may know John Simon, John L. Simon, worked for Hayes and Beers Administration. His assault helicopter was shot down in 67 in Vietnam, took 9 rounds in his hip and pelvis, 14 months in hospitals. When he got out, no self-pity, graduated from Louisiana Tech in Business Administration, centenary in finance, and started his own business until he demised in 2018. September 2018, they were still getting shrapnel out of his body. Also, Billy Prelow, some of you may know him, he may have taught your kids. Billy lost his right leg from mid-thigh, Vietnam. Deacon. No self-pity, went to Southern University, Caddo Parish school system, retired as a principal. So just want to let you all know we don't have any losers and suckers in America.
Sir.
Any of you gentlemen and ladies that I passed the books out to, if you don't want to keep or you don't want to read them, please give them back to me so our committee people can use them for next year to garner ads and support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. You may have to explain that snuffed duck analogy to Commissioner Young, I think. He
I'm
looked
gonna
as
I'm gonna tell you like my pastor, you'll get that when you wake up in the morning.
Commissioner Young, you're on the board.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to point this item out to all the commissioners here. I know I showed some of you in advance before. This is a mosquito trap prototype made in Caddo Parish by a group of young people who have a 3D printer and can mass produce them in injectable plastic. It's very simple. It uses non-toxic ingredients to lure and kill mosquitoes, even in the early season when we're not spraying or anything. I think this is a good way to reduce the mosquito population in advance, and I'd like to talk to you all more about it for inclusion as some sort of a pilot program for this year to try to diversify our methods of mosquito control here in Caddo. I can pass it around. I know that we're not touching, after each other right now, so I can also just leave it over here for everyone to look at. Thank you.
It's just a prototype. We can't buy it today.
You can buy similar ones today, but they cost about twice as much online. This one is a reduced price from those and is also made right here in Caddo, so we know where the profits are going and everything. So
Does it work
hopefully
for
they'll
horse
be
and
ready.
deer flies?
Sorry?
Does it work for horse and deer flies?
I don't think so, but depending on the bait you used, it might be able to be modified for that. I don't know how to attract those
They
flies.
bad this year too, for some reason.
But yeah, a fly could get in here, for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing that, Commissioner Young. Dr. Wilson, can you get Travis to take a look at that? Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just to piggyback on the comment about the zoo or wildlife preservation, whatever we want to call it, I paid $90 a couple weeks ago to take my nieces and nephews over to Jefferson, Texas to ride through, I think they call it the Lonesome Something drive-through zoo petting thing. And while I was there, of course, they wanted to stop and eat. So we stopped, we ate. We spent about another $120 at Riverport Barbecue while we were there. And so I think, Dr. Wilson, as we're talking about tearing down the prison in Keithville, maybe that's an opportunity to look at what Commissioner Epperson is talking about, green space where those animals come for rehabilitation and things like that, and then we turn it into an attraction. So I think it definitely has merit and some economic impact to it. But we definitely left some money over in East Texas that day. Again, I want to reiterate and thank everybody for the hard work during the pandemic. I may have left out Michelle and Jeff and their team last week, on Monday. But I think, the notion that we left work just because we weren't in the chamber is very false. We worked throughout this pandemic and we worked throughout the natural disasters. We're always at work, even if we're not here physically in the building. And so I just want to continue to emphasize that we're not out of the pandemic. I know a lot of people heard phase 3 and thought that meant take off the mask, but that's not what that means. Phase 3 still means we still have some work to do. If we could, administration, for our next meeting, get an in-chamber update on progress on our disparity study. I believe we did a joint endeavor with the city of Shreveport, the Caddo schools, as well as the port. So if we could do that, I'd appreciate it. On where we are with that and what do we need to do next. Dr. Wilson, who pays for, I heard the announcement about the initiative for crime fighting. I'm curious, who pays for, because I know the federal government doesn't have a jail here. And so I assume they sit those individuals over at CCC, is that correct? Federal.
I don't know if they have that many. We do get occasional small number over there, but not a lot.
So if they're,
Most of the state prisoners.
if they're leading an initiative for federal crimes, guns, drugs, I guess what I'm asking is, would they be held at our local facility? Because I don't know of the federal government having a local jail here.
CCC is the only facility we have.
And so who would be responsible for,
Sheriff Prater.
well, I guess my question is, who would be responsible for paying the costs for them being held there?
Well, Sheriff Prater gets paid for state prisoners. He gets paid for federal prisoners.
Can't hear you,
at a much
Dr.
higher
Riff.
rate.
You can't hear?
Yeah. The federal government pays a much higher rate than the state.
Okay.
That money will go to Sheriff Prater because he
Okay.
gets money for state prisoners right now.
Okay, so I guess my question is, the parish does not pay for federal prisons being held.
We're not supposed to pay for it.
Well, I hear you saying we're not supposed to.
Right. I can't. You know, there's a flat fee we pay for each inmate, and we this matter been to court, went to the Supreme Court of Louisiana. So we are supposed to only pay for parish prisoners, not state and federal prisoners.
Okay.
I can validate that.
So can we check to see if
Yes, sir.
who would be paying for
For federal prisoners?
federal? Yeah.
Yes, sir. The federal government will pay a fee to the sheriff's office for those prisoners' stay and upkeep.
Right.
I need to check our records to see if we're getting anything because we own the jail.
Right.
So you don't ever pay people anything?
Yes, sir. We've, and I'll let Haley address it, we do have some costs in relation to all prisoners that are held at CCC, not just, parish prisoners. There is an arrangement that we have agreed to with the, Caddo Parish Sheriff as far as what, he would keep in relation to the cost that he receives in reimbursement.
So-
But he does he does not forward all those costs to us, so we do incur some costs.
Can we find
There are
out?
just a few federal prisons, there are not usually that many.
Right, but it sounds like they plan to increase it.
Okay.
From what I heard from the press, did anybody else see the press conference?
Yeah, I saw the press
Sound like they
conference.
plan to increase the number of people
But it's already overpopulated.
over there.
It's already overpopulated.
And I guess my concern, one, is population. And look, I'm not for letting folks violent. I don't want people to think that I'm for letting violent criminals out. I'm not. But I've always asked the question about us holding state prisoners as well. And our costs, I'm concerned about the cost burden
We are too.
to
It's discriminating.
Caddo Parish residents. The federal government can print money. And so for us to bear the burden, any burden, for a federal inmate, I just don't know why we have any financial obligation. And I just don't know that I would rent my house out to somebody and then let them bring somebody else in to live there, and I'm not charging them anything. That doesn't make sense. If we're the landlords, are we not the landlord?
Yes, sir, but part of the court settlement, when we had been in litigation with the sheriff over this matter, there was an agreement made that there were X number of prisoners could be held there for state prisoners and others, as well as parish prisoners. So it's a very complicated process, but the negotiated settlement did allow Sheriff Prater to deal with state prisoners to keep them in the facility.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that, and I have no issue with that. I'm very clear. I have no issue with that. My issue is the cost burden.
Oh, yeah.
If we're paying for medical, for federal inmates, if we're paying for, these things that come with them being housed there, why are we not submitting some type of reimbursement or have some type of agreement with the federal government that they're going to go half on that or something, or pay for it themselves? They can print money. We can't. And I have always had a concern about, again, I want to be very clear, I'm not for letting violent criminals out on the street. I think people who commit crimes should go to jail. I think people who violate the law should be held in a place where they cannot harm people. But if they're not parish inmates, this is not a parish initiative, if they're being charged with federal crime, shouldn't they have some skin in the game? That's just a question now.
That's right.
John, tell President Trump, don't come after me now, John. I have a legitimate question and a legitimate concern, and I've had that concern about state inmates as well.
Yeah,
So
there's a process that we have to follow as a settlement from prior litigation we had, so I'll let you know what that is.
I'm consistent in my concern,
Yes,
and
sir.
I have it
Okay.
for state and I have them for federal inmates.
Okay.
They're not parish level offenders, so
Okay.
I'd like to see us have a conversation about that, because I don't want people being rounded up. And we've got folks over there and we're paying for them to just sit there, and we're running the bill up. I mean, insurance is high. Health insurance for inmates are high, taking
really
care, they get 3 meals a day
That's our
over
biggest
there.
expense.
So,
2 meals a day in a sandwich, but.
so we got to do something to get one crime under control, but we've got to do something to also make sure that we can keep the costs controlled as well. And that's my concern. And there has to be a balance between public safety as well as, the cost to Caddo Parish citizens, because that money is not reinvested back into the community.
Okay.
So that's my concern. And again, I'm not taking the issue with that. I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure that it's reasonable and it's feasible for Caddo Parish taxpayers to bear that burden. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick statement after kind of looking out over the chambers here. COVID has really kind of taken a big hit as far as getting our public to come on down here and kind of sit in on their proceedings. And I just wanted them to know that I and all of our commissioners, we want our citizens to know that we have missed them, seeing them in the chambers, and that we are open for business. Your commission, your public servants value your input, your questions, your suggestions regarding any concerns or questions that you may have of your government representation. We want you to feel welcome in the citizens' chambers, your chambers, free to speak what's on your mind without fear of judgment. We value your voice and involvement to make Caddo the premier parish in Louisiana. We want to see you back. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Copeland?
I'll be very briefly. Thank you, Commissioner Taliaferro, for those warm words. I want to just briefly say it's good to be back in the chamber as we've worked out the challenges. I want to applaud the staff and administration for doing an excellent job as it relates to the management of face-to-face protocols and petition glasses and the temperatures that we've taken in. That's a well-done job. And I think the entire parish of Caddo, whether it's inside this building, the people that work at the warehouse have done an excellent job delivering masks. So I just want to publicly applaud them for the work they have done during a very trying time. Secondly, I want to publicly address Mr. Everson. He usually called me professor, but I can call him professor today. That's a great dissertation on the history you did and your comments, and I want to publicly let you know that when you're saying those things and reciting that history, I am listening to you, and I do appreciate the wealth of knowledge that you do possess. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you,
give
Mr.
you an
President.
honorary double PhD now.
All right, and with that segue, Commissioner Epperson.
Just a little brief history relative to the violence that's going on. I don't know where many of you were in the late 80s and the early 90s. Caddo Parish had the highest per capita murder rate within the United States of America. So you can do the reflections on whoever the chiefs were between '88 and the sheriffs and around '96. I even invited I think the sheriffs and the chiefs to come out on 81st Street, Miss Essie Thomas' house, spend a weekend and see why she had to go to the extreme back room of her house and sleep on the floor because of the gun violence surrounding A.B. Palmer Park. Mr. Jackson, we had wanted to declare a state of emergency, but man, that was a hell of a thing we said that. Because hey, we figure we can handle our own business, but now I say they call a meeting and they want the feds to come in some kind of way, you know what I mean? I don't understand it now. But anyway, just want to let you know that history, but man, that was taboo to say that somebody else had to come in and help SPD and Caddo Parish sheriffs with the crime problem. And of course, you know, the Bloods and the Crips was really getting it on. We had an organization, Drop Your Guns. We worked in the community. We got an actual truce between the Bloods and the Crips. When a significant amount of time with no drive-by shooting. But we had scheduled a game of softball between the Bloods and the Crips one Sunday. Somebody from law enforcement official come out there with video cameras taking pictures saying that they were looking for outstanding warrants, could have got us all killed. And that was the end of it. But just want to let you know what's happening now. It's nothing new.
Right.
Nothing new. Just a different time and different names.
Move for adjournment.
And I appreciate that. Who there trying to cut me off? You want me back in this chamber now, you gonna sit here. All right, thank you.
Did we get him?
Yeah, there's no more commissioners on the board.
Don't forget about that duck dipping snuff tonight.
Yeah. I had to Google that one. We got a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Cawthorn. All right, second. All right. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you.